It's me, Dax, also known as Nicole DeBoer. You are listening to Random Trek.
Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Random Trek. I am your fearful father figure captain, Christopher Ingle, joined as always by my first officer, Commander Brennan, the mystical Mar. Brennan, how we doing this week?
Doing good, doing good. Here we go.
Here we go. This week it is Star Trek: The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 4, Suddenly Human. This season for me was such a great season that really focused heavily on family. And we've reviewed, coincidentally, the first 3 episodes of this season, short of the ending to the Best of Both Worlds. I don't think we've actually reviewed Best of Both Worlds, but yeah, this season starting out really hits home about family and identity. What did you think of this episode going in?
Yeah, heard about it. I think I had seen it once before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Certainly interesting, and we'll see what we think.
All right. Well, let's get into it, and then we can kind of break it down a little bit. So in this episode, the Enterprise is responding to a distress call from a Tellurian vessel. They end up rescuing a group of 5 teenagers. There are 4 Tellurians and a human whose name is Jono. Uh, Jono tends to keep to himself, as the other Tellurians do as well. But he doesn't follow orders from the doctor as they're being checked out. The captain walks in, and all of a sudden, he pays attention to what the captain has to say. So Dr. Crusher discovers some past injuries on the boy and suggests that he might have been physically abused. They find out that Jonah is actually Jeremiah Rosa, who was a Federation citizen. And during a conflict with the Tellurians, all hands were lost, his parents included, and it was believed he was as well, but it looks like he was taken by the Tellurians and raised by the Tellurians. His grandmother, turns out, is a Starfleet admiral. He was orphaned about a decade previous. So the captain talks to Jono about his human family, and Jono gets really angry about it. As the episode goes along and Picard's kind of pushing a little bit, Jono begins to have memories of the attack. And Jono kind of develops this bond with Picard. But it comes off very much like a teenager and a parent who just doesn't understand. 2 different sides. So a Tellurian ship arrives. Its captain, whose name is Endar, asks to see his son. This is the Tellurian that raised him. Endar claims that Jono is his own son. After the boy's parents were killed the decade prior, it is in Tellurian tradition to adopt the children of slain enemies to replace their own children who die in battle. Interesting idea. Endar says that, hey, the boy's injuries are just him trying to impress me. He does high-risk things to try and get my attention. Picard is kind of satisfied with this. I think he gets it. And he does observe that Endar cares for Jono. So Picard allows Endar meeting with Jono. Jono says he wants to stay with Endar, but Picard kind of feels there might be a little bit of Stockholm syndrome here, and that the boy is afraid to say he wants to stay, that he is trained to stay with Endar. Endar says he's coming home with me, and if you stop me, this is going to be a war between the Federation and the Tellurians. So he goes back to his vessel. Endar calls for backup. Picard tries to convince Jono to stay. Jono gets a message from his grandmother, the Admiral Rosa, then Picard takes the boy into play, kind of looks like racquetball to me, kind of. I don't know what they call it, but it looks like
Yeah,
racquetball to
I think
me.
that's what they call it.
Yeah. And Jono ends up breaking down and kind of having an emotional moment. They really do think they're making progress with him, but at that night, Jono was not doing well in his own quarters. So at Troy's recommendation, the boy is staying with Picard. Well, while he's sleeping, Jono stabs Picard in the chest. Luckily, the blade deflects off of Picard's sternum, only causes basically a flesh wound. But now he's assaulted the captain. What do we do with him? What's going on? So Picard learns that Jono feels that he cannot betray Endar by befriending Picard. And the captain realizes that he's really trying to put his wishes on the boy. So Endar's getting frustrated. Like, send the boy over now. Picard ends up contacting them and says Jono will go back on his own. Jono bids Picard farewell with a Talarian ritual that is normally reserved only for family members. And he removes his gloves, something that the whole entire episode he's never done, because Talarians don't want to touch alien species. So he removes his gloves as a sign of respect to Picard. Beams off the Enterprise, and you kind of see Picard bonds with him. And there's a sadness for him. Picard, as it's stated, has never been good with kids. It's not really his specialty, but he did feel a bond here. And I think this changed Picard immensely. All right. This is definitely a Picard-heavy episode. So,
Yes.
coming off of the trauma of the Borg attack, in dealing with coming back to humanity and just coming back from this rendezvous with his brother and his family,
Yep.
how do we think that influences Picard here in having to deal with this situation?
I think that Picard, is very reluctant
Mm-hmm.
to be a father figure to Jono.
Right.
Because maybe in some way seeing his nephew in the previous episode
Mm-hmm.
made Picard realize that, that children are an important part of legacy. And he reluctantly takes this position with Jono, and I think that there's still a lot of walls between them.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine that Picard, before the events of the episode family, might have even had a harder time with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly progresses in a way that over time, Picard becomes more of the father figure to a lot of characters.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting too. We watch these in release order, but there are many like those in our good friends over at Enterprise Incidents who look at it in production order. This episode was actually the second one filmed in that season, but it
Interesting.
was fourth released. Now, put that up to, again, coming off of Best of Both Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
What that means for this, for once again, looking at humanity. Picard is really pushing on this kid that you are human. You are a human. I really wonder why he's pushing so hard. Maybe it's because he just had to face his own humanity and having it stole from him. And so maybe that this is much more personal to him than we've accepted.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right there.
Mm-hmm. This also is the screenwriting debut of someone very important to Star Trek, the Star Trek world, Jerry Taylor.
Yes.
Jerry Taylor helped write this, but this was the very first work that Jerry Taylor did. They would go on to eventually become an executive producer and regular scriptwriter for both TNG and Voyager.
Yes.
But this is what started it. And I like Jerry Taylor's work. Jerry Taylor has done a lot with Voyager. And I think it does a very good job here.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think this is an amazing episode. It
I
also raises some interesting moral questions.
Yeah. Um, but these kinds of ideas are brought forth over and over and over and over again,
Yes, very
especially
true.
when we talk about the Borg. When we talk about we're going to liberate the Borg, but it's common that we want as a writing implement, we want to get somebody, we want to liberate them from it, and it's been
Yes.
done multiple times. But the question of humanity always comes back up again. Data's entire arc is a quest to become human. The
Yes.
search for humanity is, and if not the entire basis of Star Trek. You know, we say it's exploring strange new worlds, seeking out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. But in reality, isn't it about looking at ourselves, what we can
Yes.
become, the
Yeah.
possibilities that we have? So this is part of that overall theme. Now, this is the interesting question I'm always wondered about. Star Trek's perspective, mainly because it's written by us as human beings, isn't it a very Earth human centric focus? I mean, do you ever notice that we are always implementing our thoughts, our ideas, our moral values, our expectations, but rarely are we ever open to the possibility of other lines of thought? Not whether they're right or wrong, just other things are different. It's touched on, but everything we come back to is always on a human perspective and the standards that we set as human beings.
Mhm.
I want to see more episodes done where, like Picard, is willing to accept that this boy wants to be with the Talarians. He is essentially a Talarian now. He has to
Yeah.
accept the Talarian way of life. And I want more of that. We see touches of that. Uh, um, Picard and the episode when he was down on the planet with the metaphor speaking. I
That,
can Yeah, he had to accept that they're different. It's a different way of thinking, a different way of processing. Their morals may not be the same. Romulans. Romulan morals are not the same as ours, and there are times he's had to deal with that.
yeah.
Yeah, Klingons. But every time we come back to whenever we deal with Worf and his culture, his beliefs, you are a Starfleet officer, you better act Starfleet. That's human-based ideas. We this is, I think, a weakness of Star Trek. We don't do enough to explore truly the idea of existence beyond what standards are expected of society. But I get it. The lens is that we are human beings. We only know ourselves. But if we're going to talk about alien life and other cultures and other lives, we need to be willing to look at and accept and let our characters accept those realities as well and stop trying to push the Federation onto everybody. How many villains have we seen who have been mad at the Federation because of their, as sometimes they call it, their dogmatic ideals?
Yeah.
Star Trek isn't perfect. Starfleet is not perfect. We've had enough characters and enough admirals to prove that.
Uh-huh.
This episode is good in looking at humanity, and I'm not knocking it for being that type of thing, but I'd like it to grow a little beyond. I would like Picard not just to have introduced him to that, but maybe the boy teaching him more about the Talarians. Ah,
Interesting.
that would have made this episode, I think, a lot more memorable and a lot better, is if they had gone to the holodeck and maybe the boy recreated what the Talarian homeworld looks like, or what his home looked like, or we get a sense of what this boy experienced, and we find, you know what, this kid was loved, despite a
Yep.
tragedy which brought him here. He's loved,
Yep.
and I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting.
Yep. Okay. Your thoughts. Your thoughts overall on this.
Um, it's unfortunately I think it's kind of a forgettable episode.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anything super profound here.
I think the most profound things probably are Picard and
Yeah,
Picard dealing with these kind of. Anytime Picard has to
absolutely.
deal with a child, it's interesting.
And it turns out that our heroes are wrong in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Our main characters, who usually are always making the right choice, were the ones saying you have to accept this way of thinking.
If we go
Only to
back,
discover that maybe that's not the answer.
historically, and our Eurocentric ancestors, just
Yes,
that way. That's what life was like. You take a look at the story of Pocahontas, which is tragic.
it is very
She
much so.
she was converted and forced to convert from her Native American roots with the Powhatan people into going to England, forcing to change your life, change your dress, change everything, and give up everything of who she was, because if I remember, like Pocahontas, John Smith says, we want to teach you how to use the land. Well, we use it just fine. What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah,
He's looking at it in a Eurocentric kind of way.
yeah. There was definitely that element of, like, for example, in like Canada,
Mm-hmm.
sending the Native American children to white boarding schools in order to quote unquote civilize them.
Mm-hmm. There are stories out there of during the 1700s and the 1800s of more in the 1700s they had natives. Some of them would adopt natives and use them. They're not full family members, but
Yeah,
they would raise
even
them.
even in recent years, that's a thing.
Mhm. Absolutely. Or the stories of Korea and Vietnam
Oh,
and the
yes.
children that were
Yeah.
adopted. And again, it was a war-torn time. I understand. You, at that point, maybe felt you had no other choice. You were trying to save them, trying to help them, and your intentions were good. But you've got to be more cognizant of where they came from and who they are, and trying to change them simply because that's the way you think is right because you were born that way is the wrong idea. We have to be more open and accepting to ideas.
Yeah.
And the Federation in this episode does a bad job at doing that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. And again, they're not bad. They're not doing something evilly wrong. They're just doing something that's wrong. Innocently, but they're doing something wrong.
Yeah. 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 And so it's nice to see our heroes be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
But otherwise, it's not a particularly memorable episode.
Nope. No, it is not. But, like I said, this season
But
was all about.
it's not completely worthless either.
Yeah. And I will say, I did love seeing Wesley hit with a banana split.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Poor,
Well, of course.
poor Will Wheaton. I feel bad for him sometimes.
Well,
Oh, that was it, it was a funny moment, and it was great to kind of see them laughing and
Yeah,
at Wesley's expense. I hope Will got a little extra pay that day.
hopefully.
But you know what? That's another thing. They get along. Wesley is such a good example of the differences, and look forward to season 7, which I believe we reviewed
Oh, yes.
when he's with the natives, and he accepts their ways, and he looks
Yes.
and says, what the Federation is doing is wrong.
Yes.
We are wrong. See, there is hope. There's absolute hope. And Picard figures this out later on too with the Baku. We are wrong. This is
Yeah.
not okay.
Yeah.
So, it isn't a particularly great episode, but there are elements that I'm very happy to see sprout here.
Yes.
So, final thoughts.
Yeah, you can either watch it or not watch it. It's one of those kind of take it or leave it episodes.
Yeah, I can understand that. I agree, but I think there is some good things in here. It's not an egregiously bad episode. It's in a good season. It's
Yes.
definitely in a good
Oh,
season,
yes.
and it fits in the themes of that season, especially with Picard and humanity.
Yes.
Something that we'll deal with a lot, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. All right, so next week we have Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
All right, Wheel of Morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us the season that we should burn. Season 3, episode 22, Explorers. This is the one where Cisco builds the space sailing ship.
yep. Basically, it's Kon-Tiki.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like this one. All right,
Yep. Yep.
we'll get into that next week. Brennan, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky, Brandon at bluesky.social. Oh, sorry. Blue Sky. Wait, how does it go?
I have no idea. I don't have
I think
one.
it's bluesky.social, I think.
Some combination thereof.
You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube at Page Turners They Were Not.
You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at cingle1984. But as always, we end every episode. Kapla! Live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.